All right, guys, good afternoon. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is just after the beginning of the month for August. Today is Monday, August 3rd. Real nice day for the market. But today's video is going to be a summary of what we did for July, just kind of a look back, what strategies worked, what didn't. All in all, very happy with the way that the month of July wrapped up. We're continuing to kind of build off gains month after month after month. And risk disclaimer in front of you, everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any recommendations or advice. So we're going to be talking about performance. Of course, like past performance too is not a predictor or has nothing to do with future results. Very much so. Of course, you have to say that whenever you're talking about performance. But the goal is to basically, take what the market is giving you. And the last, couple months, it's been, there's been a lot of opportunities in the market. We hope that they continue. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my system too in this particular video. But here's the P&L for the month, if I can get there. So year to date, so E-Trade, by the way, which is where I do all of for my trading account, that's where I do my trading is E-Trade. I do have backup accounts just in case there's a problem with technology-wise with E-Trade, but that's where all my results for trading are housed. And they did a change in terms of P&L this month where they changed, I believe, from non-cumulative to cumulative. So I'm going to have to just get a handle on that. But I talked to them, and the year-to-date number is accurate. So yeah, I mean, you could see my number on the top line. A very strong month, and like I said, I'm very pleased with the way that things turned out. This should say July on it. I apologize. I don't know why it says June on it, but this is for the month of July. So typo right in front of me. And look at what the performance of the market was very strong. The S&P is now positive for the year because it was up almost 6% for the month of July. So that was negative going into July and now positive. And of course, the Qs have been the performer, outperformed again, up another 7.3%. That makes up 25% for the year for the Qs. So, that kind of goes into my style of what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to really capitalize on trends. I'm a trend trader. I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to achieve these types of results. And I think, in the room, I think a lot of traders have done pretty well if they've adopted this type of philosophy, because really, there's always headlines, right, that are that are on the tape about whether or not that the market should have gone up this far, and certain groups of stocks have gone up, in terms of tech. But really, it's not my job to, talk about, anticipate what news story. My job as a trend trader is basically to just kind of stick with the trend for as long as the trend is going to last. So we don't know how long the trend is going to last, but that's part of the process with trend trading, right? We're never going to stick our necks out and say, hey, this is the top of the market or this is the bottom of the market. We're going to wait for a little bit of confirmation, and we're going to go with the trend. So it is what, for now, really nice month. And I hope that continues. I don't know if we're going to get the same type of month for August. So I would love another, up month for the market for August. But my trading system does excel when the market is trending versus sideways. Now I adapt. When the market is sideways, I did that a little bit with earnings. We kind of traded in a range for the last couple of weeks, and that's fine. I still was able to capitalize on that. So before we go into the review and the observations, one of the things that I always like to talk about is basically winning 1 month at a time. So regardless, now that July is over, you basically have to basically wipe the slate clean a little bit and say, it doesn't matter if you had a great month in July or a bad month in July, you have to wipe the slate clean and basically now move on to August and say, hey, I'm going to do whatever I can to basically, make sure that I'm profitable in the month. and go from there. Now, of course, we want to learn from any mistakes that we made, and also capitalize on what we did that was positive. But ultimately, looking back on July is not in the rearview mirror is not going to help you. In my opinion, focused on you got to focus on the road ahead. And the the one guy that I always like to reference in these videos when I'm doing an end of month P&L video is Bill Belichick, right? The coach of the Patriots. He was the defensive coordinator of the Giants, and he's not the most flashy guy in interviews. They always try to, the reporters will always try to get him to say, "Hey, are you going to make it into the playoffs? What's your outlook for the playoffs? Do you think you're going to win the Super Bowl?" And his answer is almost the same every time. Well, we have an opponent in front of us this week. We're going to concentrate on winning that against that opponent, right? We're not going to look too far ahead. We're not going to look at the overall year. We're not going to look back, right? So he's focused on the task at hand. I love that approach. That resonates with me, and that's kind of what I say every month. If one of your goals is to have like a big up year, you gotta focus on what's in front of you. You got to do you got to execute the blocking and tackling very well, and then it's going to work out if you're doing those things, and if you're staying disciplined, making the right decisions. All in all, I think it's gonna pan out. Now let's talk about that and some of the nitty gritty and the winners. I didn't have, once again, I think this is kind of the story for me. It's not that I'm against having one or two names really, skew my P&L if something really goes well, but I just haven't really had one or two names that is driving my P&L month after month. It's just kind of the same methodical process that I'm doing here. And names like yeah, I mean, I had just a good chunk of winners, like a lot of winning trades. So some of them in particular were Home Depot, Lulu, AMD. We caught the breakout perfectly in AMD. Fastly is a name that I traded a couple times in July, and you'll notice that what I do is, just once I have a winning trade in a particular name, I I don't remove it from my screens. I basically will just look for the next opportunity once that name consolidates again. And I think really getting to know a handful of names and knowing how they trade and how the market maker makes markets in the name if you're trading options. But I think that is something also that you can come back to names over and over, and there's a strength in getting to know and being familiar with how some names trade. Now, again, we're always focusing on momentum and what's moving, and that changes around for me, and sometimes even different asset classes too, as we traded a little bit more commodities too over the last month. So I'm flexible, but I want to realize when I'm getting to know names very well. So like even just I'm not going to talk too much about charts here, but something like Home Depot, it was a really nice name to buy on red days. Whenever there was a red day, the next day was basically a green day. So and this wasn't a trade that I really took on huge size. I kept on basically buying a little bit of Home Depot, taking some off on green days, and then on a red day adding some back again. And you could do that when the market is cooperating in that sense. If the market continues to trend higher, you could take advantage and you can kind of sell the rip a little bit, buy the dip in some of these names. And this one was a pretty easy one. Fastly was one of those names too that sometimes it was a swing trade. At the end of the month was a beautiful swing trade. This thing really worked out for me the last couple days, but it provided some really good day trading opportunities too. So I think I traded this one I think probably at least 3 times this month, but just from pure memory. So again, high momentum. And again, I keep saying being methodical, but we'll talk a little bit about that too. Losers, right? So it's important to talk about the losers too, because whatever type of market it is, it doesn't matter. You're going to have some losing trades, right? A lot of traders, I think, on Twitter are afraid a little bit to talk about losers because, either they want to show that they only have winners or, something to that effect. But I think losers is really where you separate your P&L. It's one of those things where I've learned to kind of counter one of my personal weaknesses, which is stubbornness. And I kind of grew up a stubborn person, but I can't be that way in trading. If a trade is not working for me, either I size it appropriately, so like if it's a weekly trade or something like that, that it's not a big not a big size, but I'm also not hanging on to the trades that are not working, especially if options, right? We've talked about that in other webinars where we talk about how the meter is always running on you if you're long like a call option, right? So if the stock doesn't move, you're going to be losing some value because of the time decay in options. So that's why you just won't see me, hang around in a loser and try to really average down just to say I made it a winner. I'd rather just move on to the next one that's acting better. We talked about that just last week. Texas Instruments, I think, actually cost me. There may have been two trades that was the biggest loser for me. I'm trying to just remember if that was June or July. But basically, what I did, I was in a swing trade in Texas Instruments and post earnings, and it wasn't working. And I liked the chart setup better in Skyworks, and I switched over to Skyworks, and Skyworks took off. Right, so it was a much better, rather than saying, "Hey, I'm going to stick in this trade to make it work." I would rather just move on to the next opportunity and not stay anchored to that original decision that you made. Because all in all, you're going to make decisions that maybe they seemed a great decision at the time, but you think about it, or it's the price action is just not cooperating. There's better opportunities out there. So that has really helped me, not just last month, but if you've been listening to these end of month P&L videos, you know that basically I've talked about now just not having the big losers. Again, one of the things that helps in that situation too is just to pre-plan your trades. Figure out before you click the mouse and hit buy, you should already have your stop price set, and you should already have thinking about where you're going to be taking targets. When you do that, you take the emotion out of the trade. Did I have some mistakes last month? Absolutely. I had some small mistakes, no big mistakes, but basically a couple times I was a little bit too greedy on a few days, right? A lot of July was trading in a range. So if you added on the upper end of the range, that hurt a little bit rather than, so if you chased versus, what really worked was selling the rip. So selling when we had a big, nice green day, and then being patient and then adding risk back on a red day. If you did that in reverse, then your results may not have been as well last month, considering, again, we were trading back and forth in a range. So that's a big key, is really just also, making sure that you're not being super, super greedy in some things, especially in the option side, because they're more volatile. Stock versus options. Next point. Yeah, I did a lot of stock trading. This was a combination of, because it was around earnings season, but I also just feel a lot more comfortable and comfortable, excuse me, and also just comfortable with the stops that I'm putting out too in stock trades, right? You have that more volatility in an option trade. It's very hard to use a stop on a chart in an option, right? Because sometimes if you're not in a long-term option, if you're in an option that's just a couple months out, and you're looking at a stop price on a chart, at that point, once you hit a stop, the option could be marking down like 50%, right? So that's very different, and that's why in some situations I'm much more happy with just trading the stock. And then if you want to, you could leverage up that stock position a little bit with some calls. But using combinations, I think sometimes traders are just focused, sometimes just solely on options, and not using all of the tools in the toolbox. And sometimes that means just trading stock, or a little bit of both. Having a core stock position, and then adding a little bit of calls in there for for some leverage. So combinations of things have worked a lot for me. And also, not being afraid to just kind of sit in a position in stock and just let it work for you, and be patient. So I think being patient in those stock positions is really, one of my strong points as well from last month. But when I did trade options, I used them very tactically. I used a lot of call spreads. We did some really nice earnings trades as well, where I sold premium. I had a few really nice winners in terms of selling premium. We did that for what? We did that for Netflix. I think we did that for Tesla as well. So all in all, yeah, I mean, Tesla was a huge earnings winner, right? We sold premium, right? Everybody always wants to play some of the younger traders out there. They want to buy calls for for an earnings event, but there's a big price to play options for earnings. So what I like to do is kind of be a little bit more like the house, right? And the house in a casino, and I'm selling premium, betting that basically, or thinking that names aren't going to move as much as what everybody is expecting. And some of the option premium was really juiced, higher than the historic move. So that helped a lot. We already talked about this one, but buying the dip worked last month very well, and selling the rip, and then being patient and trying not to chase. Chasing was tough. When we were going back and forth in that range that the S&P was in for a little bit over 2 weeks. If you chased on those days where it looked like we were going to break out of the range, you got hurt a little bit. I've already talked about this one, but my style is a trend trader. So, clearly when we have months like this, I'm going to, if I'm, playing my system correct, if I'm deploying and playing my system correctly, I'm going to have a pretty good month. If the market does this in a month, and again, as long as I'm following the system, sticking with the trend, buying dips in trends, or waiting for names to move out of consolidation to take that next leg higher. That was basically kind of just a quick summary of a lot of the trades that worked for me very well over the last month. Looking ahead, I would say continuing to improve. It doesn't matter what level trader you are, you always have to think about minimizing those mistakes that you made in the past and improving your system, tweaking and adjusting. I don't think anybody ever gets to a point in trading where they're like, hey, I figured this out. This is easy. The game is constantly changing, and you have to be able to change and evolve with it. Realizing of course, when sentiment gets really hot, just being cognizant of that. And I think we already talked about, being aware of being too greedy. Also, don't just trade, just to trade. Every trade should have a plan and should be in the context of an attractive investment landscape. I see that also is a mistake I think that younger traders make, is that they're looking to make the same dollar amount every day, and they think every day they're going to make money. It doesn't work like that, right? I mean, I did have some down days this month. Every day that I traded this month was not a positive day, but those red days were not big red days. And again, you just have to kind of be patient and wait for when the market is going to really run, or putting on positions and kind of setting up, for not just one day, but for a couple days. And I think having that perspective of that, if the market is not giving you opportunities that day, you're not forcing trades. All right, so that's the one pager. Again, we'll kind of look to keep this rolling for the month of August, but again, have to put July behind us and focus on the road ahead and what the market is going to give us this month. Because again, we're going to have to adapt, because it could be completely different, now that we're starting to get through earnings season. So we'll see how things develop. And if you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, go check us out, tribecatradegroup.com, and you can see what our process is, every day. It's methodical, it's disciplined, and I look forward to August and the opportunities ahead. Have a great day, everybody.